So we talked about Musashi, but let's talk about the free-to-play servant that comes with Summer 4. And this is definitely one of those very hype free-to-play servants that everybody should get. In my humble opinion, I rank her up there with characters kind of like Kintoki in the way that they're so simple yet so broken. Because Saber Hokusai is just like fundamentally a really basic, easy servant to use, but she just excels so well at just being this single target arts saber that just loops her NP and just destroys everything in her path. It's really kind of a shame because if you're using Saber Lancelot a lot like I do, Hokusai kind of comes in and almost replaces him because she fills pretty much the exact same role, but in my opinion does it a little bit better, especially because she's a guaranteed free NP5 as long as you just play the event. It's also kind of why I think Saber Maeve is like really unfortunate because she just came out, or at least she just got her rerun, and if you're a newer player that you're like, oh sweet, I just got Saber Maeve, this is super dope, and then they drop this free-to-play single target art saber that's just a bit better in my opinion. But with that being said, if you enjoy FGO content, I upload videos every single day, and all I ask for in return is a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel. If you really like what I do though, you can click that join button and become a channel member to go that extra mile in showing your support. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into Hokusai, starting off with her hits. Now Hokusai over here is going to be rocking some pretty high hit counts. She has 10% star generation with 4 hits on 2 quick cards. In conjunction with one of her other skills, she actually can gen a decent bit of stars with this. Again, don't expect anything too crazy, but with the hits being so high, and her star gen stat being a bit below average, if you pair her with someone like Caskill or Lan Ling, you know, someone who can give her that extra bit of star gen as well as supporting her other cards, you actually might be able to get some decent mileage out of her star genning abilities because her arts cards also have 4 hits on them, and if you bring somebody like Caskill, you know, you turn those into quick cards basically, and they have 46% NP generation, which is not super insanely high, but if you're able to get a crit with said arts cards because their hits are so high, you will be able to see a massive refund of NP back from that. She also has the 5 hits on the extra attack, which if you didn't know, is a composite card that gens stars, gens NP, does big damage, and helps round out a Brave Chain, especially for like offensive servants like Saber Hokusai. Doesn't matter as much for like support servants, but for someone like Saber Hokusai who you're gonna want to be doing Brave Chains with, you know, you want her to just go beat people up, having a 5-hit extra attack is going to be pretty good. The only unfortunate thing is that it cannot crit, so the return on NP and the star gen for this card are probably going to be a bit middling, but hey, that's what you got the 2 arts cards for, you know, you're going to be critting with those. Now, going into her skills, they built her to be like super basic, yet she functions so well as just this arts crit, big damage arts servant that can refund their NP super well. Like, she functions really well in that niche, which arts crit servants in my opinion are some of the harder ones to do because arts cards have an innate star gen value of 0, just how buster cards have an innate NP gain value of 0 as well. You can get arts cards to drop stars, you can get buster cards to gen NP, but you have to put a lot into them because again, their base value for those stats are 0. So when you have an art servant that wants to be this big crit servant, you know, they have to be able to either front their own stars or have somebody provide it for them. But they gave Hokusai just enough, I think, with the 2 quick cards with the decent star gen, and then this first skill here, where she's getting 20% battery and 20 stars just right off the rip on a 5-turn cooldown. I think that is a very good start for her being an arts crit servant, because fronting 20 stars, that's not, you know, 50, you know, it's not like even 35 stars, right? But 20 should be just enough in conjunction with her doing a Brave Chain, especially in a Brave Chain where you get both of her quick cards, to allow her to do very decent crits. And this is not even considering that you're pairing her with somebody like Caskill or Lan Ling, who's going to buff her star gen stat to where she actually can be a crit star genning machine. And then having that 20% battery is going to really help her out in being a farming servant. I know not a lot of people like really care too much about farming, like they hate it when people bring it up, but it is a massive part of the game. So Hokusai not only being good at like genning her own stars as a crit servant, but then also having that battery allowing her to be a very good farmer for like those waves wherever you have like one really strong enemy at the start and then it's like 3-3, or you have like 3 enemies at the start, then a wave of 1 enemy and then another wave of 3 enemies. You know, we're gonna start getting those weird nodes. You guys saw it a little bit in the Summer 3 rerun, you're seeing it a little bit now in Summer 4. The nodes are gonna start getting really weird, and so when you have a strong single target servant with their own battery that can just chunk an enemy out of there, it is immensely useful to have. Now, her only having a 20% battery means she's only compatible with kaleidoscopes, which I understand that not a whole lot of players have, but you can also get this to work with event 50% CEs if you want to have her own battery. You know, when Castoria comes out and she charges the entire party's NP by 30%, you know, you could get some good mileage out of that and then like swap her out for the other DPS or something like that. Or you could have something where it's like Hokusai, main looping servant, and then Castoria. You have Castoria dump all the buffs and plug her out for the other Castoria, or something along those lines. So you can kind of get around that 20% battery, and that, I mean, her just being a really strong free-to-play farmer, I think is going to help a lot of players out in the future, on top of her being very strong for boss fights and challenge quests. But that's just her first skill. Her second skill is giving her some pretty decent crit star absorption for 3 turns, 500%. I probably would have liked to see this be a bit higher, but 500% should get the job done when it comes to star absorption. Seeing as she is a Saber and her natural star weight is, you know, passable. It's nothing insane, but at least it's not dookie like some of the other classes. It was very crucial that they did give this to her though, because it's going to help her get those crits on like the arts card and everything, which is going to help her refund. So I do like that, and they gave her a guts that lasts for 3 turns. So she has that layer of survivability in there. Keep in mind that once Castoria comes out, you know, a lot of the problems with like survivability for a lot of art servants is going to just go out the window. Because with both Castorias, you have 2 invincibilities and 2 NPs that give you solemn defense. So Hokusai having a guts is fine, but just remember Castoria comes out and she shores up a lot of defensive issues that any servants have. Not to say that having the guts is bad or anything, but if you don't think it's enough, just wait for Castoria. She'll shore up that defense. The only unfortunate bit is that the uptime for the skill is a little bit low because the effects are only up for 3 turns, but they're down for 4. But Hokusai is one of those servants that should be able to burst down a boss in 3 turns if you're using her for a challenge quest anyway. So really, it shouldn't be all that big of an issue. She should just be like brave chaining everybody to death. That's also where that new BB, that if you were able to pull her from the last event, she comes in super handy. Because if you're able to just lock like an arch chain for Hokusai starting on turn 1, you basically just won the battle. Plus BB gives her, you know, extra stars every single turn as well. You know, Hokusai really appreciates that as well. But moving on to her third skill, again, just a very solid but simple skill. She's getting a 30% arts buff for 3 turns. That's everything she could have possibly wanted. It's going to buff up her NP gain a little bit. It's also going to improve the damage of said arts cards. But then as a summer servant, she has a little weird niche skill. And this also kind of ties into the original Hokusai, where every time she does a crit, she gets an additional 20% crit damage that lasts for 3 turns. So if you're critting all over the place, you can start building up a massive amount of crit damage. Because God forbid you do that like Summer BB strat where you lock in a hand and you're just guaranteeing that you're going to be refunding your NP or just critting all over the place. You can build up a massive amount of crit damage every single turn. Even without your NP and the extra attack not being able to crit, you'd still be building up 40% crit damage every single turn if only 2 of your face cards are critting, which means 40% from turn 1, then that means on turn 2 you'd build up to 80%. So then turn 3 you have an 80% crit buff, and then as long as you continue to get crits, which I mean I know can be a little difficult to sustain, but if you're using some big brain team, you know, and you're throwing in Caskill who can really help guarantee those crit stars, then Saber Hokusai can be really disgusting and she can get really good really quickly. So I mean, overall when it comes to the skills, she's got everything she needs. It's super basic, but everything she has is really helping her out. From the battery, the immediate stars, decent star weight, a decent bit of survivability with the guts, a decent arts buff, and a nice niche that does play into her style of gameplay with the additional crit damage. Everything she has is really helping her out, but then we look at her NP, and this is where stuff gets a little bit crazy. Because it's an 8-hit single target arts NP, which means if you're able to kill your opponent in one of those few initial hits, all of those extra hits are going to be giving you overkill and extra NP gain, which isn't even unlikely because she's a free NP5, which means she's going to be doing really massive damage. In fact, her damage is so good that like the only single target sabers that are going to outdamage her are like Musashi, because Musashi just hits like a freight train, Sigurd if he gets that dragon buff, and Benny Enma, but that's only if Benny Enma actually has both of her buffs going. If Benny Enma only has one of those buffs, Saber Hokusai actually does outdamage her, which is really crazy because everybody knows that Benny Enma hits really hard, but she gets outdamaged even with one buff by Saber Hokusai. That might be in part due to her overcharge as well, where her overcharge is giving her 30% to 70% extra NP damage. So she's going to be hitting really, really hard if you're getting higher overcharge levels, which is feasible if you're buffing up her NP gain with Nero Bride or Castoria later on down the line. Giving her that just little bit of extra NP gain in conjunction with her doing arts crits all over the place, I mean, you can easily start refunding 100 to 200% of your NP. And this is one of those cases where getting that higher overcharge level means you get to do extra big damage. And you get to actually do it because she's a free NP5, so you can overcharge as much as you want. Because I know that can be very frustrating for more free-to-play players. If you have, like, say, a premium 5-star servant that has a really good overcharge effect, but you really never get to see it because you only have them at NP1, fear not, Saber Hokusai, free NP5 means you can overcharge as much as you want, buddy. So yes, make sure you go farm this event. It's not like Summer 4 is a bad event anyway, it's very good for making QP. And then the servant they give you is probably one of the better free-to-play servants in the entire game. So do not be a bum. Go play the event, get yourself a lot of QP, and get yourself this amazing free-to-play servant. I know a common question is going to be like, well, what if I have, like, NP5 Saber Lancelot? I mean, for one, she's still going to outdamage him. Two, she's going to be able to build up higher crit damage. So the only thing that, like, Saber Lancelot has over her is that he has a 30% battery as opposed to her 20%. But like I said, you can kind of make that work with Hokusai. You can have the 20% plus, like, some other characters 30% battery, or you can mesh in conjunction. You can use, like, imaginary element, and then, I don't know, you're farming waves 2 and 3 with a buster servant, so you're going to be using Merlin, so you can get that extra 20% for Hokusai. You'll figure it out. There are team comps you can use. You can get around it. You can use whatever wacky setup you need. But yeah, I would say she's in general going to be better than, like, a lot of the other single target art sabers that are in the game currently. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about Saber Hokusai. I think she's very, 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 very good. Highly recommend that you do this event and you do not miss out on getting her NP5'd. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace late, guys.